I'm standing near another piece of lost Toronto history. Behind me is Fort York, built in 1793, burnt to the ground or otherwise blown up by the British and the Americans in 1813, rebuilt in 1814. I'm not here for that. If anything, I'm here for that over there. That's Bathurst Street. Okay, what's so important about Bathurst Street? Let me get to that in a second. For a video about Toronto history, I'm actually standing outside of Toronto, or what would have been Toronto at that time. Toronto in 1834, when it was incorporated, its boundaries were set as Bathurst in the west, Parliament Street in the east, the lake, obviously, in the south, and 400 yards north of Concession 1, also called Lot Street, today better known as Queen Street. So I'm outside of Toronto. I'm also outside of land at that time. See, if anything, I'm not here for the Fort York or even Bathurst Street itself, because neither of them were here at that time. If anything, I'm here kind of for the same reason that the Fort York is here. We kind of forget it. But if you, let's see if I can get on the screen here. Okay, see the slope? That little hill running down the wall of the fort. Yeah. That was let down into the lake. The fort here was built to protect the entrance to Toronto Harbour. So if anything, right now, I'd be standing in Toronto Harbour. I'd be standing in Lake Ontario itself at the moment. But right there, Bathurst Street, is where a large wharf stretched out and into the lake, about 400 yards into the lake. It was called the Queen's Wharf. And it was the first of a series of wharves if you entered the harbour, because in the time frame I'm talking about, this was the only entrance into the harbour. The eastern entrance didn't open up until about 1858 or thereabouts. And that wharf, Queen's Wharf, stretched out here about 400 yards into the lake, shaped like a giant L. It was the first wharf that ships coming into the harbour would have hit. And it was here in 1847 that over 35,000 starving Irish landed and came into the city and entered into Canada. At the time, Toronto was a city of about 25,000 people, so this is more people than were in the city, more people than the city could handle. And many of them were ill. So they would come up the harbor, they got off the ship and they'd walk up the dock. And along the dock there were little stations for them to be tested and checked out for illness. Basically the check was someone laid a hand on their forehead to see if they had a fever, and then looked inside their mouth. And what they were looking for were black spots. And if they had the black spots, they'd be sent to Toronto's hospital and the infamous fever sheds, because the black spots meant they had typhus. If they were healthy, they were given a bed, a meal, and 24 hours to get out, either find a job or get out of the city. To be fair, the city couldn't absorb them. They had no help for them. These were unskilled agrarian workers by and large. And if there was any help or any jobs for them, it was to be in the farms outside of the city, and that's where they were sent to. Now, thousands ended up in the fever sheds at Toronto Hospital grounds, and they died in the hundreds. Over 800 of them died at the fever sheds. Were buried in either the Anglican graveyard by St. James Cathedral or the Catholic graveyard by St. Paul's Church, just outside of the city limits of Toronto at that time. They were mostly Catholic. Over 600 of them are buried there. I'll get to that monument shortly. But here is where they came in, through the Empress Wharf. You see, it would have stretched out straight down this road that way. Wouldn't even have reached the lake today. Water level has gone down, landfill filling in the lake. It would have been down that way, about 400 yards. All gone now.